Good afternoon, folks. I've been wanting to make this video for a long time, about 3 years. And the reason I think it's so important is because it's fundamental for travelling on the canals. If everybody needs to use a lock, they always need to carry something very important. One of these. Woe betide the boater who's only got one. When I picked up my boat, the engineer and I, because it was the owner wasn't around for the handover, the engineer and I from the brokers looked all over. Could we find this? Could we find its brother? No. So I went into their chandlers and I bought one myself, and that's what I bought, except it didn't look like this. It didn't have that on it. Yeah, well, being a novice, I bought an aluminium windlass. Most people would say that's a mistake. I'll show you why later. People buy these. Steel. A lot heavy, probably twice the weight. So why did they buy those? Okay, cut to the magnet shop. Yeah, magnets. Now, yeah, aluminium, you know aluminium's not magnetic. Everybody knows that, don't they? So when you drop this, and you will, I mean everybody drops one eventually. Yeah, when you drop it, it goes straight to the bottom, and you can't just throw a magnet in and a piece of string. And water can quite deep. And canal water isn't really not very often clear. You can't see the bottom. So what do? Well, aluminium's shiny. So when it happened to me on my maiden trip from London to Leicester, on the last but one lock, it fell out my hand. I had already found that I'd actually got these about a month or two after buying the boat. So I went back to using this, but it was a pig. It was a pig because, like I said, they're short. You gotta. I'm a guy. I'm a big guy, and I don't really have an issue getting through locks. Not sometimes the gates are too much for even one person, no matter who you are. But the paddles can be stiff, but you can manage. But yeah, so yeah, longer ones are better. Hello, you coming through? And being an engineer, I knew that the long handle would make effectively this a low gear on the pedal wheels, and I wasn't sure how stiff they were going to be, so I thought, well, I'll get a long one. And I was warned that in some locks up north, I think maybe the length of the arm can be an issue, because there's only a certain height between the beam and the gear. But anyway, this has been fine for me for the last nearly 5 years. So yeah, how did I find it? How did I fish this out? Well, aluminium's very shiny. I mean, this one's not bad actually. The steel one's not bad, but they can get, if they're not painted, they can get very rusty. So it showed up quite well, and I used an endoscope with a 9-meter flex and a laptop, and my boat pole, and a coat hanger and a bit of gaff tape, and it took me over an hour each time. It happened twice. It happened 6 months later. The second time it happened, I thought, sod this, it's never going to happen to me again. Never. I mean it. And I was scratching my brain, scratching my head, wondering, how am I going to sort it out? What about if there was a windlass that could float? I suppose if they were made of wood, they could float, but I think they'd get chewed up pretty quick. Although, I don't know, with a metal insert, they'd probably work. I don't know if anybody makes one. But failing that, this is what I got, and I thought, well, aluminium's so much lighter, I wonder if we can make it float. So yeah, I went to the DIY store, got some standard pipe. I think that's a 22mm pipe foam, which you slip over, and for a long time I didn't even put the tape around. I just basically just gripped yourself on quite well, and yeah, it works. Now you're saying, oh yeah, but couldn't you tighten it up and just chop that bit off the end? Yeah, I did do that the first time, and it sank. It's that little bit on the end is just enough, as the old advert used to say, just enough to keep this little baby afloat. So I'll show you that now then. Okay, so this is a lossless windlass. It will not sink, you cannot lose it. Well, maybe you can if the wind blows away, the rudder goes away. Okay. Anyway, that's my little video on the lossless windlass. I love saying that, lossless windlass. I don't think you can say it if you've had a few. Hope you can give me a like and do a subscription if you feel like it, and tickle a little bell and see the next ones coming up. And yeah, there should be more to come, because during the last 5 years or last 4 years since I stopped making videos, things like this isn't the only idea I've had. Bye bye. Hello again. So, you're right, it has sunk. I've lost it. My lossless windlass is lost already. So, I hope you've all stopped laughing now. I'm personally quite upset, because I've had that windlass ever since I got the boat, and it is very handy to use. It's a very good windlass, and you get attached to these things, and I don't really like the steel ones, so I'll have to go and buy another one. And it's times like this I wish I had a Patreon account so somebody could slip me a few quid to go and get one. But they're not expensive. And why did it sink? Well, when I originally filmed this, when I made it, unfortunately the laptop I had, the hard drive died. So I lost all the footage for the underwater retrievals, and when I originally sort of tested it out, which was a couple of locks down from here. And it floated a lot better then. This time when it came up the first time, you notice I'm there quite a long time and sort of like putting my hands out as if to say, where is it? Was it coming up? And it did come up, and it only just sort of nudged the surface with one end of it, one end of the foam. I think the first wetting was just enough that when it went in, I dropped it from a height, it dislodged enough air bubbles from the foam, so that the second time it went down, it sort of tried to come back up and it failed. It just, the air inside it must have compressed slightly because it was down below the surface, and it just kept on going down. And the reason I think it's less buoyant than it was when I made it, couple of things. It's had 3 years of hard knocks and use. I mean, I've been dropping it on the floor and just throwing it about, so that foam probably isn't as intact as it once was. It's probably been compressed and squeezed and dented. It looked dented. And also putting the black tape around it, I put that on quite snugly, so that could have squeezed it a bit. It's a little bit like squeezing some of the displacement out of the foam, so it's, you know, a bit like squeezing the water out of a sponge. You squeeze some of the air out, and that may have been just enough to sort of, you know, it only just used to float. Basically, the foam part of it, the pipe with the foam part, was just basically laying flat on the water. This time, the first time I dropped in, it was tilted like that, and just the very tip was sitting where I could go and grab it. So yeah, my attempt to show you a better shot the second time, because the first time I realised it'd fallen out of shot, and some of you might think, maybe he's pulling a fast one, and there's actually like something there, like a rubber ring or something to catch it in the water. I thought I'd better show you it again properly, and then do a close-up also dropping it in the water, but I never got that far. Yes, and I haven't gone back with my endoscope because a large wide beam was going through, just about to go through, so I ran back to get my pole. But to be honest, the water's been kicked about so much. You know what it's like when somebody kicks off from a lock coming out, and you get that churn, and the water, and also the water's flowing into the lock quite rapidly. So if this thing's floating about along the bottom of the bed somewhere, it's just going to go, you know, could be anywhere in the lock now. It'll probably even gone through the lock. I have one theory that it may surface one day, like these people who throw bodies in the lake, and then you know a couple of months later, all of a sudden they float up. I'm thinking that you know the algae or something, it's midsummer, algae might just create enough oxygen bubbles on the thing, on the foam, to give it that extra buoyancy, and one day it may just float to the surface. So somebody might spot it. I doubt I'll be around, and get themselves a free windlass. So yeah, the next one, well, if one of my other videos, when I've actually gotten the windlass and I've got some more foam, which I think I've run out of, I'll show you it, and I will show you it floating just to prove that it does work. But anyway, thanks for bearing with me, and yeah, there's one thing about my videos, I will show you my mistakes. I'm not a politician, I'm a boater, and boaters do things properly. Bye-bye.